In this short video, we'll be discussing the role of sports dietitians and how you can move in a path towards becoming a nutrition expert. Now, I appreciate that not everyone necessarily wants to go down that path, but part of this course is about having an understanding of how you might go about learning more about nutrition and turning it into a potential career. I have a very different day-to-day role as a sports dietitian than most sports dietitians. So what I thought we would start with is maybe pulling one of these day in the life of a sports dietitian from Sports Dietitians Australia's Instagram site, and you can watch a short video of someone who has a very different experience of being a sports dietitian to the one that I have, and then after the video I'll talk to you a little bit about my role.
Sports dietitian running my own private practice. I train most mornings, and this morning was a social run club, which is my favourite thing in the world. What is better than watching the sun come up with a coffee and chatting to your best mates? My clinic day revolves around clients depending on when my first and last client is, and I see a huge variety of clients from weight loss to runners to elite triathletes and Ironmen and women, which means there's never a boring day in clinic. I blocked out the afternoon to squeeze in some content, and this usually includes browsing and buying foods from Aldi and Woolies, filming and also cleaning, but I didn't have time to edit on this day because I had an exciting presentation to get ready for. My favourite thing about being a sports dietitian is on the same day I can see clients, film content, and also be invited to present on sports nutrition, and this presentation was all about marathon nutrition. I hope you enjoyed spending a day with me. Come spend a day in the life with a busy sports dietitian.
So if that sounds like you or something that you might be interested in, the SDA or Sports Dietitians Australia website, as I said, has a whole range of different videos on here talking about different experiences of individuals who become nutrition experts. And they're certainly well worth having a look at, either for your own sort of motivation or to get some ideas from a future directions perspective. I guess one of the things that's consistent though with regards to sports nutrition or sports nutrition practice is that it's based in science, it's based in evidence, but we're often trying to apply that in a practical environment, and many individuals, that practical environment is vastly different from what we might do in a laboratory when we're looking at developing sports nutrition evidence. Here's a couple of examples of work that I've done, which is trying to sort of bridge some of that gap between the theory and how it applies to practice. If you QR code or scan the QR code here, it takes you to a short YouTube video of a study that we've done looking at tattoos and their influence on sweat or sweat response, local sweat response. And the photo on the bottom left here is a photo from one of the many 10K run activities that we've done where we've embedded some research into that activity. And in this case, we were looking at the provision of different drinks after the 10K run, and then people's subsequent fluid and food intake to have a look at sort of total recovery. So having an understanding of the evidence and the application is critically important, irrespective of where you work. Here's a very early photo. This was taken when I was doing my master's degree, where we were looking at carbohydrate, electrolyte beverages and cycling performance. And so my background as a sports dietitian has been very focused on understanding some of the fundamental evidence and exploring that evidence and developing it. And that's continued right through to some of the work that we do in the laboratories that we have here at Griffith. And so some of these photos here involve dietary standardisation that we might employ for either a long period of time, several days, or immediately before an exercise task. The top right-hand photo here is taken from some work that we were looking at passive dehydration, so that's a little sauna that Jamie's sitting in which is heating him up and getting him to lose fluid, and that was before we put him in the driving simulator, which we have over in G40 on the campus here. So we've looked at various things to do with food and fluid. In this case, this was driving performance or trying to drive quickly, but we do stuff that relates to sports that might be of strength or power or endurance based, right through to activities of daily living like driving. We have lots of sports dietitians who work in elite sport, genuinely elite sport, where you're dealing with very, very few people who are capable of producing the sort of physical performance that individuals that you might see here. We have people who work in one sport across both elite right through to developing athletes. And so the advice, whilst it's based on the same evidence, needs to be tailored or catered for the audience in which the person is conducting that sport. Individuals who focus on junior or developing athletes, and that's been an area of particular interest to me, and we're going to be discussing particularly adolescent athletes later on in the trimester. Unusual sports, this is an eco challenge, which is an adventure race. This group was a group that I worked with leading into an eco challenge where the event is an unknown event. They know broadly what the disciplines will be, they know where the location is, but they don't know exactly how long they're going to be taking to do different events or what those events might be. And on one occasion during the eco challenge, they get access to a trunk of food, and other than that, they have to bring their food with them or source food from the natural environment. But at some point during, usually an event that lasts 6 to 10 days, they'll get access to a trunk of food as a team, which they can pre-pack. So they've got provisions that they carry with them, and then they have this pack that they have available to them, and they don't know whether that's going to turn up on day 1 or whether that's going to turn up on day 10 or somewhere in between. But in the last few years, the sort of focus of my sort of consulting work has really been around rugby league and working with the local NRL team, the Gold Coast Titans. And so that involves an assessment or management of a number of components of this sport, starting with basic sort of dietary advice for training, specific advice in and around competition, managing and measuring body composition, and also the regulation and distribution of supplements that of a dietary nature to the main NRL squad, which has got about 35 individuals in it. So that is a good way of translating the stuff that we do at the university into a practical environment. In terms of how or how we utilise the evidence in sports nutrition, I really like this diagram here from Asker Jurkendrup, who's one of the world's leading sports nutrition professionals. He's from the Netherlands. Asker did his PhD in the United Kingdom and runs his own private consultancy now. But I really like the way he talks about how sports nutrition pyramids should be built versus how they might be portrayed by way of what an individual might get exposed to. So an evidence-based approach by sports dietitians or other experts really starts here with a balanced diet. Then we talk about sports nutrition or some sports nutrition specific information. And then finally, the smallest and the last thing that we would discuss are supplements. Whereas if you go into your local supplement store, or even if you go into Coles or Woolworths or any store that has a sports nutrition section, the first thing you'll be exposed to are supplements and formulated sort of sports foods. So most of the information when people talk about sports nutrition in terms of what they get exposed to from a consumer perspective are all up in here. Whereas when we're talking about the basic principles of sports nutrition, and certainly in this course, we'll be talking about these fundamentals down the bottom here. And this is one of the reasons, if you have a look at the timetable of this program, we deal with the core elements of energy, the macronutrients first, and then one of the last things we'll discuss in the trimester is actually supplements, because I want to start as per this diagram here. I want to start with what does a good balanced diet look like. You may or may not be familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect. This was originally done in the concept of looking at maths and maths ability. And so one of the issues with nutrition is that in order to have grown to be an adult, everyone's obviously consumed food, and they've had a food-body relation, interaction, and their own sort of belief system around food has developed. And so when you're talking about nutrition, everyone's got a lived experience of that, and depending on that experience, they may have very strong views or attitudes towards it. Now, the Dunning-Kruger effect, as I said, related to maths originally, and what they basically looked at was what was someone's actual maths ability, and in this case, it was ranked in quartiles. So this blue line here is their actual ability, and obviously, as it's ranked in quartiles, this is the lowest performers, these are the second lowest, third lowest, and the best performers up here. But they also asked these individuals to what extent did they think their ability or their score was going to be. And what you have is what we call a relatively sort of consistent response as to what people thought their ability was in maths. And clearly their performance is very, very different. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is really about the sort of two ends of this spectrum here. This end here where we've got people who don't know a great deal, in this case about maths, or it could be about nutrition, but their perception of their knowledge is actually quite largely self-inflated. Equally, at this end, what we might consider to be our experts have a very sort of similar belief in their ability. And partially this is because if you're genuinely an expert in something, you realise that things are actually very, very complicated, and your ability to know everything is actually relatively small, so that they're a little bit more pessimistic as to what they know. So nutrition is no different to this. As I said, everyone has a lived experience with nutrition. Everyone has the perception of their own experience of how their body relates to food. But unfortunately, very few people, and indeed very few health professionals, get exposed to a great deal of basic nutrition science and nutrition knowledge in order to reduce some of this gap between what people know and what they believe that they know. And so this is one of the things that I think is really important in this course, is it provides you an opportunity to have a better understanding of, or move further down this line of knowing a little bit more about nutrition. So as I said here, this course is your opportunity to filter the noise. And there is a huge amount of noise, and it comes to us in many, many different ways based on how you live your life. So traditionally, it used to be in things like magazines, maybe on the TV, you'd see individuals, but now we get a lot of nutrition messages through the news. And obviously our social media platforms, we have huge numbers of people providing nutrition information. But we also have a food industry that is constantly producing more foods that might have a functional benefit or a health-related claim or a nutrition-related claim, and it becomes very, very confusing. You may not be able to see this. I like this particular product here. This is a photo that I took from a product in the United States. It's muscle milk, but the interesting thing underneath here is that it contains no milk. And so we have a whole range of products that are available, which from a manufacturer's perspective, they're making claims, but from a nutrition perspective, it's about being able to unpack those products. And I'm hoping that at the end of the 12 weeks, you'll have a better understanding or a better ability to do that. There is also a potential nasty, sinister, very sad side to nutrition, particularly when it comes to supplements, and that it's not always the case that supplements are harmless. And here's an example. Unfortunately, this young man lost his life a couple of years ago now when he went out, came home late at night, wanted to take some supplement from his pantry, and had received some pure anhydrous caffeine from a friend of his, and he had mistaken the product at night from the reports, and had consumed it thinking that it was maybe his protein powder. Anhydrous pure caffeine, which is a fine white powder, looks a lot like baking powder. Once you get about 10 grams of it, it becomes a potentially fatal dose, and unfortunately, in this case, this young individual didn't survive the caffeine dose that he got exposed to. So I guess my call to you as students in the class to use your good science principles and use those to develop your understanding of nutrition, and to call out things that you sort of think, oh, well, maybe that doesn't quite sort of sit right, or what is the evidence around the claims that are being made. And we have a whole range of different types of levels of evidence, right through from anecdotes or expert opinion, right through to systematic reviews and meta-analysis, which are developed from randomised control trials. So it's important that where possible, not listening to these lower levels of evidence, but we're actually looking for higher levels of evidence. You'll see a lot of supplement companies, food companies, some athletes, some coaches drawing their comments or their advocacy for certain products from this level of evidence. The evidence that you'll be shown in this course is largely from randomised control trials, systematic reviews, good quality or higher quality evidence. But even in that higher levels of evidence, it's important to be able to refine or pinpoint issues within individual studies that you might be reading. For instance, you might have a randomised control trial. In this case, is the athlete actually doing the task that we want them to do? So is the performance that's being measured reflective of the person's ability? Do we have high quality participants, genuinely elite participants, or are we dealing with very recreational participants, or participants who don't participate in the sport typically at all? And then if we're doing things in the laboratory, how well does that match what happens in real life? And there are big differences between things like levels of arousal, strategy and teamwork, that may come into play, that may differentiate the studies that are done in a laboratory from the ones that are done in a field. So I want to finish this session just by highlighting a couple of websites which I really want you to visit pretty regularly during the trimester. This is the Australian Institute of Sports Nutrition website. All of the information that's presented here is independent. It's a government-funded organisation. They don't necessarily, they're not reliant on food company sponsorship or the like. We're going to talk a lot about their supplement program or the supplement policy that they have, but they've got a whole range of fact sheets, recipes, stuff around careers, frequently asked questions and so on. And I've already mentioned earlier in this presentation, Sports Dietitians Australia. They also have a great independent website as well, which will be showing you some of the resources from both organisations during the trimester. Thank you.